And welcome everybody to the Final Yard here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I am your host, Louis Sung. I am joined by Eric Weideke and Chris the Duke Early. How are you, gentlemen? Miami Dolphins are now 6-2 for the first time since 2001. And for all this talk that we have about Miami not beating good teams, we still have the best record in the AFC East. So there you go.
Yep. Doing good.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the win.
Enjoy the win. Yeah. And I've already got comments coming in. Polterghost, just Jalen Ramsey. That is the comment. Yes, we will get into everything, including Jalen Ramsey, who, quite frankly, I know that we were hoping that he would do some great stuff, but I didn't think that he would get an interception in his very first game as a Miami Dolphin. I did not have that on my bingo card. So just seeing Jalen Ramsey automatically go back to being Jalen Ramsey, automatically seeing that he is having a fantastic time already as a Miami Dolphin. This is hopefully the first of many good years to come for him. Hopefully when Xavier Howard comes back, probably against the Kansas City Chiefs, that will mean that finally the Dolphins will have a defense that might actually be able to hold the other team accountable and make sure that their mistakes are paid for, because New England got away with a lot today, and we're going to get into all that. But before that, really quick, just want to go ahead and mention that, as always, this show is brought to you by our good friends over at PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each, it's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promo, Flex Friday specials where you can get your money back if you lose, which now has been upgraded, by the way. So now it doesn't have to be every player from Friday only. You can get them on any day. And of course, there's also the option that perhaps you can get your money. Not only can you possibly get your money back if you lose, they might also give you an opportunity to make more money than you normally would if you happen to win. So once again, use that promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. There's pretty much nothing to lose when you use PrizePicks.com. Alrighty, so comments already coming in. Ramsey should have had a pick 6 if he cut inside. He was free all the way. Hey man, look, we don't need it to be perfect. We already it's pretty much as perfect as it could possibly get. Right, Jalen Ramsey, I was talking about this as, is he the linchpin of the defense? And I really didn't want to believe that just having Jalen Ramsey, just adding him to the secondary, was the key to success for the Miami Dolphins defense. Now, I will say this. It's obvious that even with Jalen Ramsey, there were still moments where we were kind of raising an eyebrow and looking at this Dolphins defense and thinking, okay, you're kind of letting these New England Patriots march a little too easily here. We were looking at these quick slants that they were throwing, Devontae Parker making some catches. If Devontae Parker is beating you, then you know that you have to get something fixed. That's just kind of the way I look at it. But it's obviously better with Jalen Ramsey in there. I'm hoping that we get a lot more of that in the future. Brandon Jones, he seems to be okay after that hit by Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't think that it was an illegal hit per se, but I do think that him standing over him after the fact, that was where I had my issue. Like, you just lost 31-17. Don't act tough, bro. You don't have a leg to stand on there. So Juju Smith-Schuster tried to take out Brandon Jones. Didn't work. Brandon Jones is okay. Kendall Lamb got injured. He came back in, so that's a good thing. We do not know yet what is going on with Robert Hunt. I am hoping that is a easy injury. That is one of those injuries where it's like, okay, he got hurt, and he'll be back next week against the Kansas City Chiefs.
I saw some photos from the sideline. And he was standing there talking, no wraps, no braces, no anything. So I don't know what the injury was. It was never said, but it looked like it was something that was probably, he's being held out because he could be held out and wasn't needed. But if he had to play, he probably could have. So I don't think it's too serious.
Well, that's good news then, because the Dolphins are going to need Robert Hunt, especially against the Kansas City Chiefs. The team that we have coming up next, and we will talk a little bit about Kansas City, but this is for the Patriots. But I will say this. Robert Jones has been consistently the best Miami Dolphins offensive lineman all season long. And Mike...
Robert Hunt.
Who did I say?
Robert Jones.
Did I say Robert Jones? Oops,
Yeah.
Robert
Yeah.
Hunt. I am sorry. There's too many Roberts. I know too many Roberts. So no, Robert Hunt did not come back into the game. He stayed out. It was Lester, or I believe it was Lester Cotton who moved over to right guard, and Robert Jones took left guard. Was that how it went?
I think Jones.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying I think Jones came in at the right side. I think Cotton stayed on the left side.
Yeah, I look like they were alternating series. So Cotton got the first the start, and then Jones came in for him, and then Cotton came in on the third drive, and that was the one that Hunt was injured on. So Jones had to come in for him for Hunt at that point. But it looked like maybe they were doing like an alternating series kind of thing.
All right, but the offensive line, as much as we lament the fact that we're losing starters left and right, the Dolphins now have 4 backups. And I get that Connor Williams was technically active, but it was obvious they did not want to have to go to that well. They did not want him to play, because if they were willing to go Keon Smith at left tackle and they were willing to put Lester Cotton and then Robert Jones, it seems like they were looking for any and every excuse not to let Connor Williams play football under any stretch. So, but even then, with Kendall Lamb or Keon Smith for a little bit, you had Lester Cotton, you had Robert Jones, you had Liam Eichenberg at center, and the only starter that remained in the entire game was Austin Jackson. And even still, the Dolphins had themselves a pretty decent, I have to say decent game. Because once again, we have higher expectations now for this football team. We look at the Miami Dolphins and think that this is a team that if they're firing on all cylinders, they could easily have put up 40 on this New England Patriots defense, which obviously they did not do. But I'm okay with that because they put up 31. It took a little while for them to get into a rhythm. It wasn't as easy as it normally is, which was about par for the course. That was exactly what happened in week 2 when they played in New England. The Dolphins didn't have the easiest time. I was hoping we'd get more from Raheem Mostert. It's obvious that having all these backups on the offensive line is throwing off the run game to an extent. So we definitely need to get Connor Williams back. I would love to get Isaiah Wynn back. I'm not going to hold my breath on that. It would be nice if we could get Teron Armstead back at some point. We will see on that, but Kendall Lamb's still doing a good job. I just want to be able to see the Dolphins keep a rhythm going, because once you get going, there's really nothing that can stop them. You just have to make it so that as long as Tua is not going to be running for his life, you should be fine. Now, I was very impressed by Tua running for those 4 yards right up the middle. Just kind of got that first down that he needed. If he can just do that more, the other team's not going to know what to do with themselves, because there was nobody taking into account the idea that Tua might run. Like they were waiting for him to throw the ball somewhere, but they did not look at him and say, oh, he's going to take off and run. So that's a thing of beauty. I want to go ahead and let you guys have some words here, because obviously I've been talking too much. Duke, you go ahead and go first. Break it down for us, your thoughts on this game.
Well, it was closer in the end than it should have been, but the Patriots offense was really not good the whole game. They had the one drive, the touchdown drive, that was a pure offensive drive. The other 10 points that they scored came off of turnovers. So they had the interception that set them up inside the red zone, I think, and then they had the turnover at the beginning of the half that set them up inside the red zone, and they only got 3 points out of that. So Miami's defense did very well. I think at one point Jalen Ramsey had an interception, a forced fumble, 0 targets for whatever, I don't know. Even the play that Kohu broke up on third down in the end zone, if he doesn't do it, Jalen Ramsey was there to knock it away. He was right there and was jumping out to swat the ball as the ball was being tipped. So just huge impact for him. The offense, they kept trying that outside run, the crack toss, and it was working ever so often, but it just wasn't working very effectively. And I don't know if that was the offensive line or just New England was just better prepared to handle it, and just set up for it and played it well defensively. I thought Jeff Wilson played well in limited touches. Hill and Waddle did their thing. There was a lot of drops. We need to get that cleaned up a little bit. I'm reading the comment. The fumbles. The fumble was on a the one fumble was on a handoff. So that's, I'm not worried about that. It wasn't like he was giving the ball up. And the one that the ball got knocked away, again, his forward progress is stopped. He's not protecting the ball at that point. The drops are a little concerning because you end up with you had that one drive where Hill drops the screen pass and then Waddle drops the next pass. So what you don't want to do is, even though Miami's converting well on these 3rd and longs, you just don't want to put yourself in that position. But I will give credit to the offensive line. The run blocking wasn't there, but they held up well. At one point, we had a drive with Keon Smith, Lester Cotton, Liam Eichenberg, Robert Jones as 4 of your 5 players on the offensive line. So, I mean, how many years in the past have we seen where we had backups and the backups in the game on the offensive line, and it was just like, well, you might just go ahead and punt on 1st down because you're not doing anything with those guys. And Miami still played well with them. So credit to those guys. I think some snap issues with the timing. It looked like particularly early in the game that I know one time, I think it was Alec Ingold, looked like he was running to the line of scrimmage before the ball was snapped. And that has to do with the snap timing. He can move forward when the ball is snapped, just not beforehand. And I was like, this is going to create a penalty if they're not careful. And they may have cleaned that up a little bit, but getting Connor Williams back, particularly without Isaiah Wynn, who's on IR now, and he's going to be out for a while. So, all in all, a good game. It could have been better. And again, it was another sloppy game, just like the Giants game, where Miami turned the ball over, gave them free points. And the defense stepped up and just said, we're not allowing you to do anything. The offense will perform better, I think. And it's again a division game, and they won by two scores. So, got to take it.
No, absolutely. And I kind of have some really similar thoughts, especially when it comes to the offense. I think maybe the reason why they weren't running the ball as well, this offense, especially with all these outside zone runs, they're relying so much on their interior linemen to get outside and get to that second level, open things up for guys like Mostert when they're hitting the outside. And I'm just not sure that their backups are as equipped as their starters are. Like Connor Williams is extremely athletic at center, does a really good job getting to the second level. I just don't know if Eichenberg is capable of doing things like that. The drops were a little concerning, especially when you consider last week for Tyreek. He had that drop touchdown as well. Actually, Tyreek dropped 2 balls last week, and he dropped 1 again this week. But that's really kind of nitpicking, stuff like that. But it is.
Well, to be fair, Eric, but Jalen Waddle didn't drop 1 pass. He dropped at least like 3 of them today.
Yeah.
So that's where the concern is. It's not like 1 pass. It's like 1, counting 2, counting 3. What's going on, dude?
100%. But I mean, on a day that he finishes with 7 for 121 and 2 touchdowns, I'm not going to ding him for it too much. Just kind of like, hey, let's get this fixed going forward. The one thing that did kind of frustrate me a little bit, and it was that drive where you do have the back-to-back drops at the start of the 4th quarter. In that situation, that's where I'm looking for them to start their 4-minute offense. And then just to go pass right out of that is a little like, I feel like the defense only getting 30 seconds on the sideline before punting and leading to that touchdown to draw New England within 7 kind of factored into it. I mean, the offense pretty much gifted New England 10 points in this one. With the fumble, the interception. I was really impressed with the defense. Jalen Ramsey was fantastic in this one, all over the field. I think an underrated, really nice play. David Long on that 3rd down just flies over to make sure that Zeke can't get open in the end zone there. Obviously, New England scores the touchdown on the very next play. So it was all for nothing there. But the defense was good. Jalen Phillips showed up. Jalen Ramsey just changes the entire complexion of the secondary. I mean, they were getting coverage sacks, with Jalen Ramsey back there, and they're not just down, Xavier Howard, they're also down Javon Holland. So for Ramsey to be there and to cover as much ground as he did, and do the work that he did, I see the vision for the defense now. I see everything's starting to kind of come together and what they're trying to do. And you've started to see it over the last 3 or 4 weeks now. I think that this is a really good opportunity. You know, they're going to have potentially four impact starters coming back next week for the game in Germany. So, you know, you clean up some of the turnovers, you get healthy over this week, fly over to Germany as early as possible, and you know, escape with a really good win, and you're 6-2, feeling pretty good about yourselves.
Well, if you go to Germany, you're 7-2 if you win against Kansas City, and I don't know when the last time the Dolphins had a record quite like that. Somebody's going to have to look up the math on that one. Like somebody asked ChatGPT, when was the last time the Dolphins were 7-2? So, in any case, I want to go ahead and highlight once again if anybody wants to jump in the comments and ask a question, make sure you use that super chat. It also helps us out here at the 5 Reasons Sports Network whenever you do that. So we're always looking to get everybody involved. We always want everybody to get highlighted in here. Something else I want to discuss here really quickly here. So Jalen Waddle, Duke, I have to give you credit here. I had Jalen Waddle as my 0 during the pregame show. I didn't think he was going to have a big game. You called him and said that he was going to be your hero, and it looks like you ended up being right. You said you pulled up the stats for the game, right? Can you just read me off Jalen Waddle's stat sheet, please?
Let's see. Jalen Waddle, 7 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown. On 12 targets. Tyreek Hill, 8 for 112 and a touchdown. That's the first time New England has allowed a 100-yard receiver this season, and Miami got 2 of them. The rushing stats, not so good. 26 carries, 78 yards, and the 1 touchdown. Tua, respectable, 30 for 45, 324 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's respectable yards per attempt, not super high, what we're used to expecting from him. We're used to seeing, you know, plus 8 in that range. 2 sacks, 100.6 passer rating. So good stuff there. Overall team stats. They had 24 first downs, 73 plays, 390 yards to 51 plays, and 218 yards for the Patriots. They had the ball 35.55 minutes. And of course, Miami had 2 turnovers, and they got 1, so they were -1 in the turnover differential. Interesting, they changed this late in the game, but at the end of the first half, well, at one point in the first half, Miami was 0 for 5 on 3rd down, but 3 for 3 on 4th downs. So they eventually went 5 for 14 on 3rd down. That's got to be something that's cleaned up a little bit. But I mean, New England was 1 for 2 on 4th, 1 for 9 on 3rd down. So that's good defense. You can and they're a bad team, and they were dropping left and right. This was a game where it's like just everybody survived, and you don't want to see injuries. But Deshaun Elliott has been sizing up a big hit since training camp. He even said so much. He said, "Yeah, I've let up off my own guys because I don't want to hit them in practice." But he got Devontae Parker good, and to the
knocked
point
him out of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw the guys kind of pointing like maybe he was stumbling. So that was definitely, he was out. And then Kendrick Bourne went down. So, I mean, they're hurt. They didn't have a lot of talent on offense to begin with. And the ones that they did have now is hurt. So they're going to struggle. And this may have been the nail in the coffin to their season. You can't really count them out, but 2-6 is going to be tough to get back from. So
I can count them out.
I
can count them out.
I don't think you're going to put them in a playoff picture. And of course, after last week, we'll discuss New England 7 for 45 penalties, Miami 3 for 25.
Yeah, penalties actually happened today. I can't help but notice. It's like, it must be nice to be the home team.
And that's the one thing that I'll say about the hit at the end of I didn't actually catch it live because I was watching the end of the Carolina Panthers game, which they finally got a W, so that helps Miami's win percentage of who they've beaten. They just some weird penalties and going ons at the end of that game that I was like, Carolina's going to somehow find a way to lose this. Miami didn't get penalized on the Deshaun Elliott hit, and I don't think that Juju Smith-Schuster should have been penalized for the same hit, considering it was similar. If you're going to call it, at least call it even. So he got penalized for the taunting, but yeah, Deshaun Elliott got the.
Yeah, that's what I think though, because they said unsportsmanlike conduct, which doesn't necessarily mean he hit him too hard. That wasn't like unnecessary roughness or anything along those lines. It was just unsportsmanlike conduct, which is it's very weird. How do you define taunting versus unsportsmanlike conduct versus unnecessary roughness? It just feels like they kind of pick whichever one they want to call, and it's the same thing.
Well, if you call it unnecessary roughness there, then you need to call it on the hit that Deshaun Elliott had, because they arrived as the ball got there. So, in my opinion, that's a legal hit. That's football.
Right. I don't have a problem with the hit. I had a problem with him standing over the guy and being like,
so that's what the penalty was. I was like, if you're going to call one, you got to call them both. And I don't want to be the beneficiary. After what happened last week, I don't want to be just because it happened, I don't want to be the beneficiary of, home cooking or whatever else from the officials. Just call it even. If Miami screws up and they get more penalties, then so be it. Just make sure it's even. So and they call back the that down the field. What is it? Ineligible man downfield.
Yep.
And it looked bad on the replay, but then they showed the line of scrimmage. He was within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage, so he was legal. And of course, my internet decided to kind of sputter right as that play happened. So I saw him catch the ball, and then he was a few yards down the field, and the next thing I know, it said first down. I was like, "What's going on here?" So,
yeah, I don't mind the hit on Brandon Jones. I mean, it sucks that he got hurt at all. I hope that he's okay. We'll see.
He was. I think he was in the game afterwards. He was fine.
Oh, was he in the game? I'm not.
Yeah.
Well, so was Javon Holland, and he had to go into the concussion protocol, and he was considered.
That was on fourth down, so I don't think Jones came back.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Well, at any point, and Duke, you're putting it in our private chat here. The Jets are going to win this game. They're beating the Giants.
So I've got this game pulled up on my phone here. The Giants had the ball. The Jets had the ball with like a minute to go, or a little more than that, and Zach Wilson got sacked on fourth down. Giants all they had to do was they couldn't run out the clock because the Jets had 2 timeouts. They miss a field goal to go up by 6 points. The Jets come down in like 3 passes and get a field goal to tie the game. And now, thanks to a pass interference penalty down the field, the Jets are kicking a field goal to win in overtime. It's a 35-yard attempt, 33 or 35. I can't see. It's real small.
So
and the Giants are playing a backup quarterback, somebody named Danny DeVito or something like that. I don't know who it is.
Danny DeVito.
It's something DeVito. I don't know who it is.
Let's talk about this for a second here, right? Because the Dolphins beat the Giants by 15 with their number 1 quarterback, and it's the Dolphins can't beat anybody. The Bills beat the Giants by 5 when the Giants are trotting out Tyrod Taylor, and then the Jets are about to beat Tommy DeVito by 3 points here. And they're going to be hailed for their gritty victory over the Giants. I'm just saying it doesn't strike me as consistent.
No, the standards are definitely not there.
And you look at it too. Look at Kansas City. They are playing, and division games again are always toss-up kind of games. But you've got a team as good as Kansas City, playing a lowly team like the Broncos. You should win. I mean, Miami beat New England by 2 scores. Could have beat them before by 2 scores. And they're a 2-6 team. That's what you expect to see from a 6-2 team. Yet Kansas City faces Denver at home, and the score is like 16-9 or 19-8 or some ridiculous kind of odd numbers you don't normally see. Miami beats them 70-20. So, it's just one of those things. You look at, how other teams play against these other teams. And I know I said in the pregame show that Philadelphia did come back and beat the Commanders by a score, by touchdown. So they didn't suffer the post-Dolphins victory hangover that the Bills have. So
that's ultimately what it boils down to, though, right? Is that we're talking about the level of competition that the Dolphins are playing. It's interesting because Even Stephen A. Smith on First Take pointed this out when Mad Dog was talking about how, I don't think the Dolphins are real, they're frauds. And even Stephen A. called him out and said, you said on your own show that you can only play the teams in front of you. So calling them out for saying that they're not beating anybody substantial is the same thing. It's like, okay, well, they lost to the Eagles. The Eagles are a good football team. They are the Super Bowl runners up, in fact. So for the Dolphins to lose to the Eagles, I don't feel like there should be any shame in that. It's not like the Dolphins were sitting at 4-4 and desperately trying to get their season back on track before it was too late. The Dolphins are, as of right now, again, 6-2. They have only lost 2 games, one to Buffalo, and Buffalo always finds a way to beat us somehow because that's just how they do things. And they lost to the Eagles. Okay, it's 10 penalties against Miami, 0 against Philadelphia. So we can gripe and moan about the penalty differential in that game, but either way, still only 2 losses for Miami. It's only 2. So I appreciate that we now have a higher standard for the Miami Dolphins. Believe me, I love the fact that we can look at this team and say we expect better from you at this point instead of just being happy that we squeaked out a victory regardless of how ugly it was. I remember when that was the case many years ago when I had talked about how I don't feel like the Dolphins beat the Jets. I feel like the Jets beat themselves. It didn't feel like anybody wanted to win that game. And I got roasted alive because a W is a W and no one should care how it happens. That's not how we're thinking about these things anymore. Now we're not looking at it as Dolphins win. It's a Dolphins win regardless of how it happens. Now we have reached the point where we're on the same level as the guys in Philadelphia, as the Kansas City Chiefs. And we're saying, if you guys are really that special, we're expecting you guys to beat these other teams that are ahead of you. And if they are worse than you, if they are considered worse than you, if their quarterback isn't as good as yours, if their defense isn't as good as yours, if their running game isn't as good as yours, you don't just have certain elements of the team that you're better at, and then this other team happens to be better at you than other things. The Dolphins are by every available metric a better football team. And if you have that advantage, we expect you. We are not hoping. We are not praying. We are not crossing our fingers saying that, that's how we're looking at it. We are looking at this Dolphins team and saying, this team is bad. You guys are not. Go in there and beat the ever-living crap out of them. And so far, they have done exactly just that. Even on games where they're not necessarily playing that well. The New York Giants, the Dolphins were not good by their standards against the Giants. And they still won by 2 scores. They still won by 2 scores against the Giants. And they were immediately looked at as like, boy, what's going on with these Dolphins? They're not doing as good as they're normally supposed to. Even in this game, they won by 2 scores. And we're looking at these Dolphins being like, something doesn't feel right. The rhythm feels off. It's something about it that just doesn't seem right. And what was wrong was that there were 4 backup offensive linemen. And then at one point there was a backup to the backup. So it's very obvious that when this team is firing on all cylinders, it's almost invincible. So
I think that comes back to the running game. If you look at the games that we watched this team kind of dominate, the Denver game, you look at that and the Carolina game. They ran the ball very well. They ran the ball very well against the Giants. And so when the running game is going very well, they're almost impossible to stop because you can't key in on a 1 or 2 guys. You can't key on that one dimension. And that's what the Patriots were doing today. And they did a good job of taking away the run game. The difference was Tua in the passing game stepped up and got the win. So, when we get that aspect going, and part of that's the offensive line, it's hard to run the ball in the NFL as it is. It's hard to do it when you have backup offensive linemen. They're backups for a reason. And they just can't generate the same kind of push. When you have Armstead, Wynn, Williams, Hunt, and Jackson out there, your run game, they would have ran the ball for 150 plus this game with those guys out there. It's just hard to with guys like Cotton and Jones. The communication is off. Jones is coming back from an injury. He has not played since the preseason. Lester Cotton's got some reps. So, it's a tough situation. And as they move forward, they will get better, whoever plays that left guard position. But one other stat that I want to bring up is the one touchdown drive that was an offensive touchdown drive for the Patriots. It went 13 plays, 81 yards. So they had 11 total drives. One of them was a kneel down at the end of the first half, so we won't count that. Out of 10 total drives, the other 9 netted 137 yards. That's good. That's good defense.
That's good defense. And by the way, Bradley Chubb, we were talking about having another big game. Duke, what was Bradley Chubb's stat line? I know he got at least one sack. Did he get credited for more than one?
Man, he had one that was so close. Like Jones had the ball back. His hands were separated. He was getting ready to throw, and his hand came in just as the ball was moving forward. If he is a 3 microseconds faster, he gets a sack. Let me get him pulled up here. A strip sack at that. Bradley Chubb, three total tackles, 2 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. So
1 tackle for a loss.
So that's the sack. So they don't separate them, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So Caterco, who had a tackle for loss early in the game. Unfortunately, these don't have like the target and all this. This is just the ESPN app.
Yeah, but, it's the basic stuff. In order to get we'll dig deeper during Pulse of Fins Nation this upcoming Tuesday.
Jalen Phillips, 8 total tackles, 7 solo, 1 sack.
He was fantastic today.
They had 7 QB hits. That's lower than I was expecting, believe it or not. But they had 3 total sacks, 1 for Chubb,
Christian Wilkins,
for Phillips, and 1 for Wilkins, who is now, I think, leading the team in sacks. That's going to hurt somebody's pocketbook. Julian Hill got his first NFL catch, 1 catch for 4 yards. Chase Claypool contributed. Savon Ahmed was he was the 0 this game. He had 4 catches for 16 yards. He had the big one that was a 20-yard gain. So he had a 20-yard gain and finished. No, that was the one with the first down, right?
Yeah, that was the first down. Yep. I got called back.
No, they kept it. That was the
that was the ineligible man downfield.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So he had a 20-yard catch and finished with 16 yards receiving. So that's not good. Rushing 2 carries for 1 yard. So not a good game back for him. But Jeff Wilson was the only one that was over 4 yards per carry. We won't count Tua's runs because he had nail downs at the end. That's going to affect the total. But overall, a good game from the offense. Just need to clean up a little bit in the run game and stop the drops, and they'll be fine. So not a complete game, kind of a sloppy game. You can't have the turnovers. The interception was totally his fault. They fooled him. He had Hill wide open initially, and then Kyle Duggar dropped back into the lane, and Tua never saw him. The fumble, who cares? You can't have that. You can blame it on the snap, blame it on Tua, blame it on Mostert. I don't care. Just don't do it. ESPN is listing it as
it's a fumble for Tua.
Okay, so they count it for him. So is it his fault? We don't know. Just can't have that happen. When Connor Williams gets back, that should be that's some of that stuff will be cleaned up. So the good news is moving forward, we're going to have a relatively healthier team going into this Kansas City game. Teron Armstead is set to come back from IR if he's going to.
If he's okay, that's the one thing we haven't heard anything about whether or not he's actually good to play yet.
Well, his window is open, so he probably won't play. I don't think he's been practicing yet, not been eligible to practice until this week. And the way they have been
even if he's eligible, Duke, even if he's eligible, do you really think Teron Armstead is even going to practice? When does he ever practice?
I don't think he's going to practice, but I don't think he's going. But I think it would be one of those: get him out there and let him run some. If he's going to do things, maybe not 11-on-11s, but do drills, just to get him kind of up to speed.
I love Teron Armstead. Believe me, I do. But it's fair to ask. It's very fair to ask how much better could he really perform than what Kendall Lamb has been
No.
doing?
Oh,
this
no,
year?
no. Hold on. No.
No. I'm not saying. No. I'm not taking it there. I'm not taking it there. Don't put words in my mouth there. But I'm just saying Kendall Lamb has been giving you Pro Bowl play at the left tackle position so far over the first 8 games. He has.
He's
What's
not
the
been
standard for Pro Bowl play,
better.
though?
He's not been replacement level. So
he's been high level starter good.
Yeah, he has been. There are teams right now in the NFL that would take Lamb as their starter.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
That I agree. I was the one who said that not too long ago. I agree with that. But Teron Armstead is who he is.
Look at
the
win rates and the pass block.
Well, to Eric's point, at what point in Teron Armstead, at this point in his career, is he ever going to be 100% healthy? And at 100% healthy, Teron Armstead is one of the best left tackles in football. You will start him over Kendall Lamb. Is 65% or 70% Teron Armstead better than 100% Kendall Lamb? That's the question. And so
even then, I'd still think about it.
I don't think
because we watched 70% Teron Armstead last season, and he was Pro Bowl caliber.
Yeah, and so, but I mean, Kendall Lamb's given you some of that this year. Now, again, I don't think it's like, oh, well, we can just let Armstead stay on IR the rest of the season. I don't think it's a situation like that. And the best offensive output the Dolphins have had, or any team has had in the last 60, 70 years, Teron Armstead played in that game. And he only came out of that game because of the score. So when he's ready to go, he's going to be back in the lineup. I just think they'll ease him back into it. I don't expect him to start against Kansas City, although he's eligible to be there. He may be active. I just don't think he'll play. It might be a Connor Williams situation, but I do think Hunt will be back. He didn't look to be in a situation where he was not on the sideline with an ice pack or, on crutches or have a brace. He was just standing there talking to people. So, if everyone had gotten hurt to the point that he had to come back in, I think he could have. But yeah, I agree with Eric. I think Kendall Lamb has given you at least it's not been replacement level. It's not been the backup caliber tackle. He's playing starting caliber football.
I'm not debating that though.
Yeah, but I mean, and it's a good argument to have that. Well, you could have better on the roster, but what this does is it brings up a point more or less for next season. What do you do with Teron Armstead and his contract? Do
you keep him because you can't afford to dump him?
You can get around things.
But I think a restructure would be a restructure would definitely be in the cards. I would think
a restructure keeps him here longer.
Well, it also keeps him here longer at less of a prohibitive number
for 2024. Then it hits him in 2025 and 2026 instead.
But they'll have more room in those seasons to maneuver.
Yeah.
But the given Mike McDaniel his penchant for resting players beyond their, X practiced all week and he didn't play. Connor Williams was active and didn't play. And again, if you're going to get Liam Meikenberg some starts, Philadelphia is not it. Carolina was it. New England was it. So he's getting some good reps against teams that are not going to stress you. Next week against Kansas City is a different animal. That defensive line is a problem with Chris Jones. If Liam Meikenberg's playing, Miami's in trouble. But it's a good argument to have regarding Lamb. He was a really good find last year. He played against New England. He started against New England last year in the second game. And
that's how we knew he was good.
And he got hurt in that game and was done for the rest of the year. So, and Keon Smith came in for Lamb and played well on limited snaps. They didn't attack him immediately, which I would have if I was Bill Belichick. But it was a, you don't want to lose a starter to injury. Like, you don't want to lose your starting job because of an injury. But at the same time, Kendall Lamb's playing well. I mean, what do you do there? I mean, Eric, what would you do?
I mean, obviously, once Teron Armstead is 100%, you play Teron Armstead, right? It's a luxury that you have a swing tackle like Kendall Lamb. I mean, like let's talk through this for just a little bit. I mean, even a guy like Lester Cotton, I didn't even really notice him playing badly, kind of, on the offensive line. I thought he was fine today. You know, he's not Isaiah Wynn, but he didn't really do anything to hurt the team today. I think you go back to having Kendall Lamb be your swing tackle, and you look at the depth on this offensive line and you say, okay, well, you know, you're still a little uneasy with Liam, but you look at Lester Cotton and you look at Robert Jones and you look at Kendall Lamb and you're like, you know what? If these three guys are three of our main backups, and maybe we can go out and sign a backup center off of somebody's practice squad, or maybe they're encouraged enough by what they've seen over Liam getting a little bit better over these last few weeks. I think you kind of look at the offensive line and you say, okay, well, Connor Williams, Teron Armstead, once those guys get back, you look at the depth here. I know we were talking about how thin the offensive line was. You look at it and you're like, okay, well, we've got probably about 9 guys that we're comfortable playing if we have to. And you just enjoy being in that situation, really, more than anything. But Teron Armstead, once 100% healthy, will have to start.
And to that point, we put up nearly 400 yards of offense against the same New England team that last week only allowed total yards. They allowed 339 yards to Buffalo. So, I mean, that sounds like smaller numbers, or relative numbers, but that was a win for them. Buffalo scored 25 points, lost the game. And I think they had most of their starting offensive line, and Miami's playing same New England team with backups, with a backup to the backup. I think that's Keon Smith's first ever NFL snaps. I don't think he saw the field last year, if I recall. He may have. But, I mean, here's a guy who's never played in the NFL or had very limited playing time. And he's playing left tackle in a division game against Bill Belichick, in a game that they needed to win, a game that Miami should win. And, so if, like he was saying, when you get all your guys back and you're healthy, it's good to know that you have offensive linemen. Say, well, if we have to have them, we're still good.
So now I'll go ahead and I will field the Teron Armstead comment. Again, but the reason I objected at all was the way that the question was being framed is, what does Teron Armstead give you that Kendall Lamb isn't right now? And that's where I had an objection, because Teron Armstead is an all-pro left tackle, and as good as Kendall Lamb has been playing, there's a reason he was on the street up until now. It's not like every other team in the NFL just missed out on a superstar player that just happened to be there. Kendall Lamb is playing out of his mind right now for the kind of player that he is. He has a lot of players that I'm sure there's a lot of teams that would be willing to take Kendall Lamb. Heck, I'm sure the trade deadline, there might be teams actually calling Miami and saying, hey, you guys still have Teron Armstead. Would you be willing to give us Kendall Lamb if we give you like a 4th-round draft pick or something like that? And I'm sure there are teams looking to save their season, trying to see if they can get themselves some good blocking. I'm not doing it. I'm not taking that deal no matter what, because I want to have the luxury of having Kendall Lamb. But to the question of what does Teron Armstead give you that Kendall Lamb does not? Superior pass blocking, which he is better than Kendall Lamb at that, and run blocking, which he's also better at Kendall Lamb at. Just very basic things. Teron Armstead, not to mention, not even counting just the ability to play the game, he's also a leader on the field that Kendall Lamb is not. Teron Armstead is one of the few players on that team who can turn around, look at Tua Tagovailoa and say, relax, dude. We just take a moment, take a chill pill, and let's get back in gear. Tua is the captain of that offense. Don't misunderstand me. But even people who are in charge have their mentor figures. They're guys that they look up to and say, hey, man, what do I do here? That's Teron Armstead for a lot of players on this football team, whether he's on the bench, whether he's sitting on the sidelines in practice, whether he's on the field playing even as we speak. Teron Armstead does a lot of stuff that Kendall Lamb does not. So if the question of Kendall Lamb playing well, of course he is. I'm not saying that he's not playing well. He's playing well as a backup, better than a lot of team starters right now. But what does Teron Armstead do that Kendall Lamb does not? Plenty. That was the only objection I had.
And one thing you could argue is availability. That's the one thing that you're not getting from Teron Armstead every year.
Okay, that's true.
But I'm going to say this, and then I'll get off that subject. This is a tweet from Richmond Webb. I love y'all. I really do. But I'm 56 years old and haven't suited up in over 20 years. I would definitely do more harm than good. Thank you. Hashtag Dolphins, hashtag retired, hashtag too old. So
it just reminds me of that. What is it, the Tostitos commercial? Let's unretire. It's like
that just popped up
to see the playbook.
That just popped up on my feed. So I thought since we're talking about left tackles, I thought I'd mention that.
Yeah. So that was my only gripe with how the question was framed. Poltergeist pointing out he didn't realize how big Chase Claypool was. I'm actually surprised that we actually got anything out of Chase Claypool so far. Like, I was hoping that somewhere down the line Claypool would be able to contribute in some ways, but he made a couple of good blocks during some of those touchdown drives. He made a catch, so that's special for Claypool. I feel like everybody knows, I think Claypool included, knows that this is probably one of his very last chances. I'm sure that if he were to leave the Dolphins, some team somewhere would bring him into training camp and preseason and see if maybe they can get something out of him. But Claypool's whole issue was never whether or not he was physically talented enough. He's obviously very talented. He's just a head case. So if Mike McDaniel can calm him down and be like, listen, buddy, I'm on your side here. Let's work together and get your career back on track. Which so far, I haven't heard anything from Claypool that suggests that he's unhappy, that he's frustrated, that he wants to get more touches. Of course, when you have your teammates being Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, you don't really have a leg to stand on to complain about your touches. And you're just kind of like, listen, I'm just glad to be here because I have the best wide receiver in football right now, acting as my number one. So who am I to talk? Even guys like him have to realize there are dudes that are better than you, and they're staring you in the face. Acknowledge it.
Well, when you come to a team like this where you've got that kind of talent ahead of you, you realize that you are at best, and I'll get to that in a minute, Poltergeist. You realize that you're wide receiver 3 at best. You're not getting all those looks that you were not getting in Chicago. But in Chicago, you were there as potentially a number 1, or in this case for this year a number 2, and you're still not getting the target. So the other issue with him is he's learning a complex offense. I mean, we heard from Hill and guys this past year. It's like, oh, we're getting better in this offense after a full season, and he's learning it on the fly mid-season. So what he's going to be able to contribute is, I'm going to say, limited. And I think we saw that in the first drive where he ran I don't know if the route was wrong or the timing was off with him and Tua. But I agree with running those fades. I mean, we're running those to Tyreek Hill, who's 5'10", and he can go up and get those, but you've got a 6'3", 200. You've basically got a tight end for a wide receiver out there. Throw him the ball. Let him go play jump ball and get it. Don't be throwing it to your small guys. And I know you want to get those guys touches, but it wasn't working. Use them to your advantage.
There are actually comments coming in now from the press conference. Mike McDaniel just said something very interesting, because it's always interesting when he says something that kind of confirms what you're already suspecting. Mike McDaniel said that it was a protective measure to keep Connor Williams from playing, even though he was active. Obviously, we knew that. He said he was available if he was an emergency, and one more guard injury would have pushed Connor Williams into the football game. So now my question at that point would have been, would you have pushed in Connor Williams at guard, or would you have bumped over Liam Eichenberg to play guard while Connor Williams went back to center? That's what I would actually be curious to know, because I already know Liam Eichenberg sucks as a guard. We know that for sure. As a center, he's been he's all right. He's not the worst.
How would you feel it would be best served? You keep you put Williams at center, and you have, that's probably the most important position on the line in this offense. And you have your best player there and move Liam out to guard, or do you put Connor Williams in, who's probably better at guard than Eichenberg is, and mitigate your losses there? So that's a good question.
In emergency game, I would say put Connor Williams at guard, because I don't want to run the risk that Liam Eichenberg, if he's already in a semi-decent rhythm as a center, the last thing I need is to throw him off his game. And if he does, Tua's going to eat dirt, a lot of it.
I want to question, because how did you guys watch the game?
What do you mean? How did we watch the game?
Your platform.
Oh, I gave you how I watch games.
I had I got YouTube TV streaming stuff. We also have an antenna. So it was just regular live TV.
Did this game not look like something from 1987 or something? Like my feed, it was very glitchy. It was very, the definition was very bad for most of the game. Did anybody else experience that?
It didn't bother me. I think it's just your internet.
I didn't notice it too much.
I saw some other comments from other people, and they were having the same issue. And I was like, did CBS just bring the wrong cameras to the game? I mean, what was it? But then I went to the Red Zone channel. Yeah, so I don't know if it's something with YouTube TV. I just wanted to check with you guys. I didn't know how you watched it.
Wilds. Hey man, listen, I'm still a little frustrated that Xfinity hasn't fixed my local channel block. I don't understand why I'm paying for it and I can't get somebody to come in here and fix it. But that's a different discussion. Hey, Xfinity, if you're listening, I really would like my local channel so I don't have to resort to what I've resorted to watch football games. Just saying. It's like, I'm not buying the extra NFL red zone or NFL ticket, Sunday ticket, just because you don't want to come fix my CBS 4 channels. But in any case, we're getting close to the end of this show here. It's been a wild ride this season so far. I'll say that. Dolphins are 6-2. It's so fun to be able to say that. Dolphins are 6-2. We're first place in the AFC East. And not only that, we have more wins against our AFC East rivals than Buffalo does, because they have already lost to the Pats. They've lost to the Jets. And with any luck, when they come to Miami not too long from now, hopefully they will have lost to us as well, and we will have the best record in the AFC East out of anybody else, which would be super when it comes to tiebreakers, if it came to that, which I am not convinced at this point that it will. Buffalo is on a downward spiral. They really are.
As far as I know, Miami's the only team in the division with a winning division record. New England's 2-2, Miami's 2-1, Buffalo I think is 1-2, and I think the Jets are 1-1. Because they lost to the Patriots, beat the Bills. I don't know that they've played anybody else in the division. They've not played.
They haven't played us yet.
So yeah, they're 1-1 in the division. So yeah.
And then just to kind of because it's been really positive, and that was a really positive note. Lewis just jumped on there, and I want to jump on an even more positive note. Is there any addition any NFL team could make at the deadline that is going to be more impactful than the 4, maybe 5 additions the Dolphins are going to get heading into next week? Like, let's not forget here, guys that are, I don't want to say confirmed coming back next week, but are almost locks to return next week are Javon Holland, Xavier Howard, Robert Hunt, Connor Williams, and maybe, emphasis on maybe, Teron Armstead. You're getting 4 guys that are really, really good at their positions, kind of getting airlifted onto this roster here at the deadline.
And you don't have to trade a single asset.
Exactly. Not to say that you shouldn't go out and look to get better. I think you always should be looking for opportunities to get better, but you'd be hard pressed to find a team having a better deadline than what the Dolphins have coming off IR.
So I want to ask, because we won't get to cover this on Tuesday's show because the deadline will have passed. Chris Grier has been active in recent years at the trade deadline. Does he go out this year and get someone? And if not, let's exclude Claypool from that, because that's pretty much a flyer kind of trade. We've already seen the Eagles go out and get Kevin Byard from the Titans. Is there anybody out there that you would want to see them get, or who do you think they would get? I'm going to give you a name for my pick right off the top. If Denver loses today, if I'm Chris Greer, I'm calling and saying, hey, what would it take to get Quinn Miners off of your team? He can play center. He can play guard. He would immediately step in and probably start at left guard for you.
Counterpoint. Is it possible that Quinn Miners was one of those dudes who despised Butch Berry with every fiber of his being, and he wouldn't want to come here?
Well, let's assume that he's not, because I mean, obviously, if you're Denver and what's their record? They're 1-6. I don't know if they've got 2 wins. Whatever, they're bad. I mean, maybe he says, I don't want to go there. Don't send me there. But you know, I'm a firm believer in that winning cures a lot of ills. So you come to a team that's 6-2, possibly 7-2 going into the bye week. You got a playoff position almost locked up at that point. Yeah, I'll deal with it. So that another name I'm going to mention because I've said it before. King Henry, come on now.
No.
Hey, listen. Tennessee traded Kevin.
No more running backs. No more.
They traded Kevin Byard for a 5th, 6th, and a backup safety. You tell me you can't get a 30-year-old running back for peanuts?
They said the Titans already came out publicly and said that they're not going to be actively looking to trade Derrick Henry. Whatever we gave them would have to be a really good deal. And at that point, if I'm looking for a running back, I'm just going to go back to the Jonathan Taylor stuff again. Because at this point in his career, Jonathan Taylor's better than Derrick Henry. Sorry.
I mean, if they want,
but Jonathan Taylor already signed his extension.
Right, exactly. So that's what he was looking for. So, but again, how did we get here? Hold on a second. We already have the best running game in football. We don't need Derrick Henry, man.
Whoa. Hey. The numbers bear that out that they do. But let's be honest with ourselves right now. On 4th and 1, let's say 4th and 1 in the AFC title game. Do you trust them coming out of a regular handoff, lining it up and handing it off to Mostert or anybody on the roster right now?
Why would you do that when you can just give a quick slant to Tyreek for 10 yards out of that?
Because that's a lower percentage play than running it up the middle when you have an established running back.
The one
that can run between the tackles.
The one player I would trust in that regard would be Achane. Not up the middle. I think he would go outside, but yeah, I mean, Henry's a guy that would change the way defenses have to look at your entire team, because it's like, well, do we cover the speed? What do we do? And again, I just brought that up because it's kind of a wish list. I think if the Dolphins are going to look for trade deadline moves, it's not going to be big names. It's going to be, offensive.
Is not a big name.
I'm saying I don't think they will go that route. I'm thinking they will go with offensive or defensive line. Where there's some areas where they have injuries and they're getting guys back, but you've lost Isaiah Wynn for a while, and it sounds like he's probably not going to be designated for return. So, what happens if Armstead gets banged up again? What happens if Connor Williams can't get completely healthy? So I think offensive line would be a move that they would make if they're going to make a trade. And I think Quinn Miners is a good name because he has some familiarity with the staff. And if he's one of those that he was not in on it, he didn't like Butch Berry, then so be it. But I don't know. That's the name I threw out. But I just wanted to mention that. I know the show's going a little longer, but we won't get to talk about it Tuesday because the deadline will have passed. So I just want to get some thoughts from you guys.
No, I get what you're saying. I do, but I'll address the Derrick Henry thing for the last time. But it's like we've already gone down this path, and I get what you're saying. Yes, would make the other defenses think twice about just stacking the box, going out and stacking the box and trying to stop him, or at the very least, if Derrick Henry's back there, you can't just sell out to stop the pass and let your defense try to stop the running back. But again, the other opposing teams already have to do that. We just finished saying today that if there had been starters on the offensive line, Raheem Mostert would have run for 100+ yards, easy. So what difference does Derrick Henry make at that point? Like, you can't get much better as far as, you can scare the other team, but is Derrick Henry going to run for 200 yards just because he's back there?
No, he won't. But I guess the issue that Derrick Henry solves for this team, and it's an issue that I believe exists, Lewis, you might not believe that it exists. I'm not sure their 4-minute offense, when they need to grind a team down and win a game in the fourth quarter, it's got to be kind of unconventional. They're not a team that's going to line up and just run the ball down your throat in the fourth quarter.
No, they're not physical. I absolutely believe that they're not physical.
But if you could get a running back like a Derrick Henry, it makes that a little bit easier if you can do it at a cost that's not super prohibitive.
Okay, what would you be willing to give up for Derrick Henry?
I mean, if they're giving Bayard up for 5, 6, 7,
you're not getting 6th-round pick for Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry's a running back. Let's not talk positional.
He's Derrick Henry's their superstar running back who sells all their jerseys, bro. He's not the same thing.
But he's on the final year of a contract, so they're probably not going to re-sign him. So
I wouldn't hold my breath on that yet.
Well, I mean, they may or may not.
Offer a fourth.
Yeah,
that's my offer. Take it or leave it.
See, Miami doesn't have a 2024 fourth, so it'd have to be a 2025 fourth. I would do a pick swap. I would say if you're going to go that route, the earliest pick you have is a second. At the rate Miami's going, it's probably going to be a low second. Or deep down the draft second. So I would offer a second and a player for Henry and a third.
So Emmanuel Ogbah?
I don't think they would need him. It would have to be I don't know. I don't know what Tennessee needs. They need help on the offensive line worse than Miami does. I don't know if Miami has any tradable pieces on the offensive line.
Kendall Lamb. That's it. We're not trading him.
You're not. Well, you can't trade him because of Armstead.
I wasn't going to, but I'm saying if you're looking for tradable pieces, it's Lamb. That's all you got.
I mean, I would. If you made a corresponding move and picked up a center, I would trade Liam Eichenberg. He's the only player that's on the offensive line. He's on a rookie contract for at least one more year.
If Chris Greer manages to trade Liam Eichenberg for literally anything, he deserves to have a statue right next to the one we're going to build of Laramie Tunsil after he retires.
Well, I mean, you gotta look at it in the sense of, I mean, if he did, it's going to be for one of those. We'll give you him and a 7th for a 6th in 2026 or something. One of those kind of deals. It's going to be essentially we're just giving you a player for hopefully something. That's the only person on the offensive line I think that has any value that you could trade, unless you're not trading or not signing a guy like Connor Williams or Hunt. They're the only other ones that have value. I don't think Austin Jackson has that kind of value. So, again, I don't think it's a conceivable idea. But I do think they go after somebody. I just don't know what. It may be interior defensive line. I saw a tweet earlier this week that said Ndamukong Suh wants to play for a contender. I've been on that bandwagon for a while, so they could.
I do, yeah, me too.
The defensive line, it's not like they necessarily need it. The starters are playing well; they just need the depth. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if they do go after anybody. But who do you guys think? Well, we've talked about Henry. I said Quinn Miners. Do you guys have any names of players that you would want them to go after?
Not in the trade deadline, no. Not for me anyway. As far as I'm concerned, If I'm the Dolphins, I'm just looking to see if I can dump off Emmanuel Ogbah somewhere and save myself some cash because maybe get a 6th-round pick out of him. I just don't want that money on my books yet. I want it gone. I don't want to deal with that right now. That's the only way I'm looking at it for the Dolphins. I'm wanting the Dolphins to be sellers, not buyers. The Dolphins are already talented enough to get to the Super Bowl. I truly believe that. So adding one player who's power but goes against the entire structure of how this team functions. This Dolphins team is a finesse team. There's no getting around it. And adding one dude who's built on power is not going to suddenly change their entire identity. These guys are a finesse football team, and they're not going to change just because they have one dude. So even if you add Derrick Henry, yeah, okay, you're 4-minute offense, but that's a lot that you're giving up just to make sure you can run down the clock when you have a 7-point lead. Like, you can do that in other ways too, and they've already proven they can do that. So with that in mind, if I'm the Dolphins, the only thing I'm looking at is, okay, who can I dump off to get some future assets and maybe get some cap space? Can I dump off Emmanuel Ogbah on some team somewhere and save 15 million plus in cap space and maybe get a 6th-round pick out of him instead of having to cut him next year, because there's no way Ogbah's staying next year. Certainly not at that price tag. There's no way that I'm going to be holding on to Jerome Baker, because I also, as much as he's doing well, honestly, his stock has probably never been higher than right now, even though we're looking at linebackers and saying, oh, we need new ones. Yeah, we do, but they're not going to come in trade, and they're not going to come in free agency. You got to draft one, and you got to draft well. That's what I think if I'm the Dolphins I'm doing. Now, with Jalen Ramsey back and Nick Needham back, maybe you can kind of afford to let guys like Duke Riley get some extra snaps because you can afford that depth. But even now, I would think Jerome Baker is obviously more important to this defense than Emmanuel Ogbah. And I am looking at this team and saying the only one that I'm willing to give up for anything is Emmanuel Ogbah. And the Dolphins don't have a whole lot of money right now to work with anyway. So I need to dump some cash before I even think about trying to become a buyer for anybody. So I'm looking at Miami and saying, trade Ogbah, get a 6th-rounder, maybe a 5th-rounder if you're lucky. And that's the trade deadline for Miami. That's what I'm looking at.
Did Needham get any snaps today?
He got a few.
Okay, I didn't know.
I didn't see much of him today. I got one name, not a huge name, but more linebacking depth. Also on the Broncos, give me Josie Jewell. I'd like to see him get added to the mix here, just to have additional depth at that linebacker spot.
Denver just went up 14-3 on Kansas City.
Yeah. So great. We're going to get a pit. So if this goes the way that it's going, we're going to get a pissed off Kansas City in Germany because they lost to Denver. Oh, Lordy. Okay. Well, listen, it seems like we always end up getting these really good teams when they're furious and looking for blood. So whatever. Once again, Dolphins will have an opportunity to play a team that's considered Super Bowl contenders. If they can win, then we can finally say, aha, the Dolphins beat somebody that you respect at last. Are we finally worthy? Are we not in frauds anymore? Whatever. We're going to get a lot of players back. Devon Achane will be back. I see Polterghost talking about how he misses him. I do too. He was playing out of his mind, but he'll be back. Don't worry. He'll be back.
And you got to think, if we can get out of Germany next week healthy
and go to the bye,
you go to the bye week, and then you get the Raiders, the Jets twice, the Titans, and the Commanders. So the Jets are getting a division game, so you have to look at that from that lens. But you got 3 teams that you should beat soundly. You come out if you can steal the win, and I've said that for a few weeks. Try to steal one of those road wins. You didn't last week. You took care of business at home. Still the road win against the Chiefs. You're 7-2 going to the bye, and you've got 5 winnable games coming up. That's 12-2, and
that's a division title right there.
That's if you can pull that off, you've got a good stretch going into that final 3 games against the Cowboys, the Ravens, and the Bills that are going to be very tough.
There's no reason the Dolphins should not win the division. None. The only excuse you have really at this point is something happens to Tua. That's the only thing that you could excuse it and say, okay, well, that's why the Dolphins season went sour, is because something happened to Tua. And that's kind of what we looked at last season. We watched and saw what happened when something happened to Tua. We missed a lot. We missed out a lot of games because Tua was missing. So now, so far, we are 8 games in. Tua has not been injured. We've not heard that, he tweaked something, or his ankle, his knee, his big toe, his pinky finger, nothing. So knock on wood again, but Tua's been healthy. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. The Dolphins are benefiting from it massively. If he had been playing all season last year, I have no doubt the Dolphins would have made it further into the playoffs. This team is predicated on Tua's health, and so far, they're keeping him healthy. He's keeping himself healthy, And with all these other guys who are going out, the one constant has been Tua on offense, and the offense has been able to continue keeping going, even if they're not necessarily in a perfect rhythm. He still makes stupid mistakes. Nobody's going to deny that. He still does things that we scratch our heads and wonder, what are you doing there exactly? But he's the best quarterback in football right now, at least from a statistical standpoint.
And Tyreek Hill is the first wide receiver to go over 1,000 yards in the first
just
8 games. So
yep.
He's already got more touchdowns this year than he did all of last year.
So. He's a star. He's gonna hit that 2,000 mark as long as he stays healthy. If Tua and Tyreek stay healthy together, 2,000 is basically guaranteed. All right, folks, that's going to be it for this show. I appreciate you guys sticking with us for this long post-game show, but hey, you know what? It's there's a reason to be happy. The Dolphins won this game. By the way, make sure you're using promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. All you have to do is just go there, put in your $100, and PrizePicks will literally give you 100 of their dollars for you to play with. There's literally no reason to not go for it. So just go in there, get started, start winning some cash. And we're going to go ahead and end it here. Is there any last words before we call this show? I see more shaking. It's a win. There you go. Poulter goes post INT. Tua is a monster. Yes, he's the best quarterback in the NFL after an interception. All right, folks, that's going to be it for this show. We will see you. I will have Fins Nation up tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. We have Pulse of Fins Nation going to be live Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. That is the regular time. We're going to be doing that every week from here on out. I only took this last week off because my back is back. My back is back, so we're good to go. And we got a lot of Dolphins content ready for you as the Dolphins get ready to face off against the Chiefs. We're already on to Kansas City. All right, folks, have a great rest of your day.